All right, welcome to Fatboy FadeAway Sports, the Sunday morning edition, episode 111. I got Tyler McGurk with me, my co-host. This week we've been a little busier, Tyler, doing a couple Warriors pregame or postgame recaps, I should say. Those have been fun. But today we're back to the usual Sunday, just kind of recapping things in the sporting world, talking about things that came up this week. And there was a lot of interesting things, not always just hardcore sports related, just some funny things that happened around sports, I thought. Probably the most hardcore thing we'll get in today, sports wise, is we'll deep dive a little bit into the 02-03 NBA season. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you can look forward to that part too. But Tyler, first off, how are you doing, sir? Here.
Doing good. Excited to get into this 0203 deep dive. I was a little surprised why you came up with this idea, but 20 years, I guess, we'll see how much the game has changed and what really matters now compared to back in the day in
Well, I
the
think
game of the NBA.
the reason I was thinking about it is just because I don't know, just sometimes you'll start like reading articles or something, or you've seen that I've been posting a lot of pictures and stuff like that of
Oh,
old players.
yeah,
And so in the midst of doing that, it kind of makes me think about the seasons and then watching old highlights. You're like, man, just so much has changed, but the players are still, like their stats are still pretty good. So I thought it'd be interesting to go back and look at that season 20 years ago. And obviously 20 years now, and where basketball has changed so much. But other than that, like the other thing I noticed this week with you, changed your podcast up, the other one up a little bit.
yeah. It was
Why?
hard, and I just want to support other people. If they want the help. If they don't want it, I won't give it to them. But I just felt like we needed to put out more clips of our channel, just a little short 20-second, 2 minute, promote things. And I thought it was a good way to go about it. I'm still gonna do a couple takes here and there with probably Brian Johnson, like on the channel,
Yeah.
and just call it Tyler's Takes. I still want to get my opinions out midweek, but I'd rather do that with you. I think I work better with you than anybody else. So I'd like to keep that as a Fatboy FadeAway thing for the most part. But
And
if you're
it,
not available, I still have that platform to do it.
yeah, no, I think it's a good idea too. I just find it kind of funny too how like the audience span is so little that where the clips are very important like that. Like
Yeah, exactly.
like if I go to our YouTube analytics, it's like people watch for 38 seconds. I'm like, stop. I like so it's hilarious to be looking at that stuff. So the clips things actually probably do better. They get a lot of feedback, the clips, more so than a whole episode. And that makes sense, right? We don't always how many full episodes are you watching of things too. So uh I guess that's kind of the part of it. So I think that was a really cool idea that you were doing that as well. We did the NBA recaps this week. Those went well. I was listening to Let's Be Real podcast yesterday. I also want to shout it out Ryan Harris as well. He's somebody that we follow on Twitter, and he's kind of retweeted a lot of our stuff. And we haven't actually personally got to meet him, but I feel like sometimes through those things we kind of get to know the person a little bit. And uh, obviously something going on with him. So just prayers up to him. I was thinking about him as
Absolutely.
well this week, uh, for sure. So those guys did a good job mentioning that as well yesterday. I thought this week I did want to mention with me sports. I'm embarrassed to almost admit it. Remember on this week the big deal on Twitter and was Elon Musk was taking over Twitter, right? And then
Oh, yeah,
what was the blue check thing like? It was like you could buy it for like $8 a month or something like that in that range or something. There's probably different packages of whatever your blue check status could be. But uh the thing that was funny about it is like there's always these parody accounts and I always feel like our guy Savage says it the best. It's weird behavior, those parody accounts. I don't know why that doesn't make sense. It is weird behavior. And so this week I I I saw Adam Scheffner tweet the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels. So I retweeted it and said thank you. And then Pete Shark tweets me and says, "Oh man, somebody got you." And I looked, and it was the fake Adam Schefter with the blue check that I got, and I was like, "Son of a-" I was laughing so hard, I couldn't believe it. I was like, how did I fall for that? And I remember like probably like a year and a half ago, Fake Sham got me once. He's an
I
NBA
don't.
guy.
I
Yeah.
remember, yeah, it's such a like. Could you imagine spending $8? Like $8 isn't a lot of money, but it's $8 just to trick someone into thinking something's real. It's just weird behavior. Yeah, I got got by Danny Ainge kissing the Shamrock before every game and loving the
Oh
Celtics
yeah,
and kiss
I
the
forgot
Shamrock.
about that.
I've forgotten. It happened. But those people just weird. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Elon's gonna do to mitigate that.
Yeah, I mean, the people that want to buy it for like the longer videos and stuff like that, whatever, that stuff's fine. But yeah, you're right. Especially the people that have the fake accounts just to do that. I mean, it is kind of funny, but I just got a lot of time on your hands for that.
Yeah, it's like
But I was laughing when that happened to me this week. I was so happy that McDaniel was fired too for like 5 minutes. I was like, I was so happy. I was like,
praise the
"Dang it."
Lord.
And it was so funny too because I was listening at work. It happened to be my break. I was listening to Damian Adams' podcast on Third and Three, and I even commented. I even made that comment on their podcast that McDaniels was fired. And then I could tell Jason's face was like, "What the heck?" He's like, he didn't really comment on it. Thank God, longer than that. But I was like, idiot, idiot, idiot. I just thought it was hilarious. So that happened this week with me on that way. I also thought before we get into like people start the NBA thing here, I thought the Barry Bonds thing was funny this week with him getting back on the ballot, the contemporary ballot. Like, how ridiculous is that? Like, I don't know. I just find it so ridiculous that a year after he's not in the Hall of Fame and after whatever 15 years of voting him not being in the Hall of Fame, he's on the contemporary ballot. And maybe he gets in, who knows?
I mean, if you look at that ballot, all 8 of those guys are probably Hall of Famers. Like, why are they not in the Hall of Fame? What do we do? Like, we're having
It's
this
Clemens, right?
weird
It's
Clement. Trying to find the list.
No, but I know it's Clemens.
Albert Bell, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Don Mattingly, Fred McGriff, Dale Murphy, Rafael Palmeiro, Kurt Schilling, and that's all. Maybe half of them should be in the
what
Hall.
do you think as a Giants fan? Do you think it's just ridiculous at this point that he's even on any ballot anymore? Like, or do you think it's
No, absolutely not. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't care how he gets in.
Yeah,
I mean, no, I don't think. I think it's stupid that it's taken this long for him to get in. I mean, we have cheaters in that we are cheaters. I don't know.
The contemporary ballot.
It's wild.
NBA thing I was watching this week with it was I was watching the Grizzlies play the Timberwolves a little bit before the Warriors Cavs game on Friday night. And the T-Wolves and the Grizzlies kind of now are getting that like kind of the hate a little bit like the Warriors team was, I feel like, when they first came onto the scene. They kind of the Warriors team, remember they would showboat a little bit with their bench when they would hit the threes. They would, Bazemore. They would, yeah. And then Iggy kind of took that on, and then always took it on life on its own after that. And they did get a lot of hate. Remember, teams would say like, "This team needs to be humbled." And I thought it was funny because we obviously know a lot of people on Grizzlies Twitter, and they were using that same sentence towards their team this week. I just thought it was kind of hilarious that like how sports is always full circle like that. The next team up is always the cocky young team, like. And the Grizzlies sure are that, but to the Grizzlies' point, like the Warriors are going to have to go through them to win a championship, or the Grizzlies are going to have to go through the Warriors. Let's make that part clear. But at this point, the Warriors also know they're going to have to beat the Grizzlies to probably also get to a championship. Is Bane and Morant the best backcourt now? Like, is that number one? I mean,
yeah, I
think so. The stats. I mean,
I think so.
Like, I'm not saying like. I mean, you have to also think, Tyler, for a full season when they put this together, but are they right now like, I was thinking there's Young and Murray, right? I'd probably have them at 3. I had 2. I would probably say, I thought Garland and Mitchell maybe be better than that in some regards. So I had them at 2.
Their defense is just pathetic. I'm not like both of them.
Well, it's not like Young defenders. And Murray are better than that, but
Murray's a good defender though.
So then that's my point is you put Bane and then like I just put Curry.
Yeah, exactly. Curry and anybody. He's there.
But that's the problem is Clay's not played up to that level right now. But I think that to me that's my biggest takeaway from the NBA this week. Is like I was like, hey, is that the best duo now in the NBA? Like backcourt wise.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it is.
And it's kind of interesting to me that both those players in Memphis, they weren't recruited highly out of high school. Maybe not the same way Curry and Thompson were.
Yeah.
They went to smaller colleges. Bane ends up at TCU. I would say Washington State and TCU are they're not like high. TCU is probably a little bit better, but actually probably a lot better. But you get my point.
No, it's not that much better.
They've probably had a few NCAA runs more so than I would say than Washington State, and then obviously Davidson and Morant School. I just off the top of my head, I can't think of it. Right? Was it Morehead State? No, that was Kenneth Fareed,
What
wasn't
the
it?
hell is wrong with us?
There's nothing wrong here.
Y'all went
I just can't
to,
think of his
yeah, I
name.
don't know.
We'll look it up
Right
while I'm
now,
looking.
it's.
Anyways, I think that's the best backcourt right now.
I would agree. I think the Pacers are young; they have a chance to get there at some point in the next couple of years. But yeah, I would agree. I think who's the point guard the Celtics picked up this with Jaylen Brown's not bad. Murray State. Yeah, that's good old Murray. Bill Murray. Yeah. I think
you think Warriors fans will be pissed at me for not saying Curry? I guess that's my point.
No. I mean, Clay's garbage so far the first 11 games. How are you gonna put some like a one-man backcourt back there? I think they're top 5 just because of Curry.
All right, now that we've had a day to sleep on it, do you still think the Warriors win at Kings today?
Yeah.
3 in a row, that'd be fantastic. You get that. Yeah, I think the Kings might get them in this one a little bit. I mean, at some point, right? That's 3. They've been close. Maybe, but we'll see. Hey, Curry's the key. Can they stop? Can the Warriors score again like that as well? That'd be also interesting with it. I was watching the Gobert back to that Grizzlies game. Gobert just on offense is tough to watch. I'm like, at least get your buttocks in front of somebody when you're trying to cut in front. I mean, he just stands behind somebody. It's like when I'm trying to teach somebody a basketball. I'm like, all right, hey, listen. And this is like 5th graders. I mean, hey, listen. Hey, I'm open. You're not open. There's a human being directly in front of you, in front of the passer. Like you have to. I feel like Gobert does not do that a ton. He just stands there right behind the guy and then just banks on the guy's defender, having to get the defender. It's tough to watch if I was a coach. I don't know how they fix it at times. And it was hilarious watching the game though. Like the spacing is getting better. I'm like, what? Spacing's not getting that much better.
The T-Wolves need a new whole overhaul. That team is falling apart quickly. It doesn't seem like Edwards and Cat are playing well. They don't like playing with each other, it seems. Saw this highlight of Cat running straight out of bounds when he didn't get a ball down the lane on a transition basket. And Edwards threw it and he was standing out of bounds. And it just, I don't know what you do. The roster just seems like it's quit on their coach and quit on each other. It's been disappointing season for the Timberwolves.
What team have you been watching? What team have you been watching the most besides the Warriors? Have you honestly been able to? Has it been the Pacers just because of
the first week when I got free NBA League Pass? I was watching them every time they were on. I haven't watched much, but I watch every highlight of Benedict Mathurin. I always see how he does, how he's scoring, and the kid's impressive. He got 8 rebounds, which he hadn't been doing well enough in my opinion. Because in college he rebounded great, and now he's just lethal from 3-point range. I didn't see this 3-point, like him being this good from 3-point range. So I've just been watching a lot of Benedict Mathurin, to be honest.
Let's go from that point of him. Let's go to what we're going to talk about here on the podcast a little bit. Here. As you were talking about how Mathurin has been lethal from 3-point range, and we were going to talk about the 02-03 NBA season a little bit here. And Mathurin gets a lot of comparisons in some ways to some people to McGrady. And in that 02-03 season, McGrady was the scoring champion that year at age 24. So maybe Mathurin does have that type of projection to where he'll get to that point of being a scoring champion. And right now, it's hard to not think he won't have that potential. Probably playing with Halliburton for a decent part of the start of his career too. All right, so the reason I kind of thought that was a good idea to kind of take a look at this was just to kind of look back, like I said, at how the NBA and just how sports in general change over time, and just to I think it's fun to always look back at players and to reflect on how they were a part of the history of what we're watching now in some ways. So with that said, I kind of wanted to go back and just kind of give people a real quick touch of where 02-03 season was. That's the year that the Spurs did beat the Nets in the finals, 4-2. Duncan was the MVP of the season. Stoudemire Rookie of the Year. So that was kind of that part of the season that the Lakers had finally not won after 3 straight years. So that was probably the biggest news from that season. The thing I noticed right away was just the scoring differential. Just looking back at the years, like just how many points were scored is just ridiculous. Like I looked at just opening night alone. So opening night in 02-03, if you took all the scores together, that year, only 10 teams were able to score 100 points that whole entire time. Like, in the first 38 games, that's what it was. The first 38 games, so about each team played about a game and a half. You take it is 38 teams, 10 teams scored 100. This last year, going back to that mark, or this year's opening night, right now, 20 years later, only 3 teams didn't score 100 points in opening night. So that kind of shows you the differential. And there was only one game where both teams didn't score 100 points. That was the Bucks Sixers opening night game. So I just thought those were like right away jumped out to me. Was, and some of the scores were really bad. Like there was a 67-point Cavs game early at 20 years ago. There was a 68-74 game. There was a 77-83 game. Like, I mean, there was some like really low scoring games back in 02-03 that we forget was kind of just coming out of that 90s basketball era where it was kind of like, you get into the post, but it was starting to free up a little bit more with the 3 ball, but not really yet, not to the full league wide yet. So it was really interesting looking at it. What was your first thoughts looking back at that? Probably the reference page there a little bit.
I looked more at individuals, and mine was this: the guys played more minutes per game back then. There's like 11 guys who average more than 40 minutes per game. Now there's none. Like, just the whole resting of players and like stuff is where I was like, man, the game really has like, not for the, it's changed for the better for sure, but in that aspect, it's like the one point where I was like, it's a little weird. And I think that has something to do with how it's up and down more today. And back then it was more just half court, just slow it down and less running. But I was like 42 minutes a game for Allen Iverson. Just ridiculous.
A shout out to Catino. He got 41. Second there, Marion Walker. Walker. He was all over the stat sheet in that season. He attempted the most threes that year, and he led up to that reputation. He averaged 7.5. That was more than Ray Allen.
I saw that.
I thought some fun facts about that year, just to give people some more perspective. That was the year Jordan's last season in the NBA. That year with the Wizards. To me, that for some reason that season always sticks out to me too, because of Jordan in that All-Star game. The fadeaway hits over Marion, after like 30, after so many overtimes, and for some random reason that the Mariah Carey, the halftime, that
what a dress.
What a dress that one. That's hard not to stick out. But even the guys, the commentators couldn't. I remember they couldn't hold back at that during that one. I thought there was also, I remember that season Artest. I don't know if you remember this moment when he like kind of gets into Pat Riley's face on the bench. You remember that when he was on the Pacers? He gets up in Pat Riley. He's like one of the, it was before the brawl and that stuff. But I remember that when I look back at some of the highlights, I was like, oh yeah, I do remember that. He gets right up in Riley's face on the sideline, and the assistant coach has to kind of break it up a little bit. Yeah, you have to check it out there a little bit. Jay Rich defends the dunk contest that year, second time that year defending the dunk contest as well.
Very impressive.
The Ray Allen traded to the Bucks for Gary Payton. That was the big trade that season. And that was kind of one of those trades too. Looking back, it was like a fun trade. Kind of like we don't, just kind of like a Payton for Allen. Kind of swung to Seattle. That made that team pretty fun with Rashard Lewis coming on. So that was kind of one of those big trades I thought for Seattle, not to win a championship, but it really helped them a lot getting rid of Payton at that point and getting.
It didn't make sense for the Bucks to do that. Payton was at 32 at that time, or 31. Like, it was slowing down. You could kind of see it. And Ray Allen's coming into your prime. Like, I don't know. Whenever you choose a coach over a player, it makes no sense to me, unless you're Phil Jackson, or especially in the NBA.
That is one of those trades. The only thing I can think of is that they didn't get. I think anything like you said, Peyton back for him, like, maybe get draft picks or something, but that wasn't really the thought process back then. You know what I mean? The Bucks were at a championship window at that point too. Still, and then to me, the biggest news about that season maybe was the cloud hanging over that season was LeBron's class was coming in the next year. So that was like the big LeBron's. They were pending next that season as well. The all NBA teams that year. I mean, you talk about a dominant class, especially those first 2 teams, like a class where you're just, all these players were just legit. There's no fake players. That first team, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Tracy McGrady, and Shaquille O'Neal, with McGrady and Bryant both averaging over 30 points that year. just insane. You know what I mean? Like, and then your second team, Iverson, Kidd, Nowinski, Wallace, Weber, all Hall of Famers. So you have 10 Hall of Famers, all lived up to the hype in that season. The third team is always the interesting one to me because you get a few that kind of always kind of make it in there that are a little different. Pierce, the Hall of Famer, obviously, he gets in there. Nash, the Hall of Famer, he gets in there. But then you got O'Neal, Jermaine O'Neal, Stephon Marbury, a little shout out for the Suns days. And then one of my favorite players, Jamal Mashburn, he makes the third team MVP. So I thought those what I always look back at those teams and they always kind of crack me up a little bit. Anything stand out to you looking back at those teams? The thing I know is without dominance. I was like, damn, those were great teams.
Yeah, the 0203 is just all top 25 players of all time outside of McGrady. But McGrady had a top insane year. He was the highest player efficient rated player that year. He was just people would say he's better than Kobe. Like people were like arguing that. Like if he played with Shaq, would they be better than the Lakers? Or could they have been better than the Lakers? Obviously, Kobe goes on to be Kobe, and it's not really a question, but at the time it was. And then Jamal Mashburn making an all NBA team was just, and he's out of the league 2 years later. Like it was like that was my biggest takeaway. I didn't know Mashburn had that quick of a fall off, like just out of the league in 2 years after being all NBA third team.
Yeah, no, and he has an interesting career, Mashburn too. Looking back, the thing with McGrady, going back to him real quick, is I would have loved to see him play with Vince his whole career. Just those two guys at the wing position. That would have just been tough matchups for people to deal with scoring wise. McGrady, that was the year that he was up 3-1 on the Pistons though, and he did blow it. So that was the tough year. That was the bad quote year. Don't one of the worst quotes of all time.
What he said?
Second round never felt so sweet. Not a smart comment, not smart basketball.
Premature.
And then even the all defensive teams were stacked as well. The only name that stood out where I was like, was Eric Snow. That's probably a name that many people don't remember at that point. And then looking back at the rookies coming in that class, we had Karan Butler, Gooden, Nene, Yao Ming, Stoudemire, Jay Williams, Ginobili, and Boozer. Those were the standouts from those teams as well. So those are some interesting things there.
Did you mention Yao Ming?
I did mention Yao Ming. With the all NBA teams that you're back to Kobe's team, that was the fact that Duncan was able to win the MVP when you had two guys score over 30 points is pretty impressive. Like, and that season, the Mavericks and the Spurs both had 60 wins. And it was kind of a weird year in that regard too. That was the year too that the Mavericks, I don't know if you remember, they were up 3-0 on the Blazers. And then the Blazers came back and they won 3 in a row. And they were like, is this going to be the first NBA team to blow it in 7? And it was tied at 95 with like the last 4 minutes, and Nowitzki and Dash had a few shots. And I was like, oh my god! It was like when the Mavericks were just like the fun Mavericks, and they were interested. They were like the one team at that point where that was like, all right, we're gonna play fast pace. Like they were averaging 108 points, which was like a ton for back then and stuff like that. But they were like the one team that was kind of trying to play fast at that point too. So, what did you think? What player do you think? I was looking back. Any player that would have you think would have a harder time now, would be almost like something like those great players. Like to me, it's just they would adjust. So I don't know. Did you have any? I mean, you can still use them, but do you have anybody else possibly too?
0203 season. Let me look real quick.
Well, as you're saying that, for me, the one where you're saying, the guys that would have
Marbury, the Steve Francises, those type of players of the world. I just think they would have struggled back. And if you can't shoot today.
To me, the most
unless you're like Allen Iverson quick, you're can get to the hole at rack and you're that small, then I think Allen Iverson would have those two. I would think would have struggled.
To me, the most fascinating ones, and those teams would be dominant, but you just would want to see how teams play it now with the coaching and the knowledge ahead of time. Would be just from years of obviously seeing the player play. Would be Yao Ming and Shaq. How would they? You know what I mean? Not saying they would be dominant, just teams would expose them more and more on pick and roll than I feel like enough teams did last when they were playing. You know what I mean? Those teams just they had they had Greg Osterstag running the pick and roll. I mean, Shaq. You know what I mean? There wasn't enough guys that were dominant enough at these positions that could take advantage of it. So to me, those players would be super fascinating. Not saying they could be good, but just be fascinating to see how they adjusted at the time now. And then guys that surprised me looking back at the stats from those years, I was like, man, those guys could actually ball a little bit. I forgot, Is it? You remember the name Matt Harpry? He stands at ring a
Matt
bell.
Harper, Utah Jazz.
Averaging 17 points a game back then. I didn't realize he averaged that many points a game in a season. I thought it was like a 9 point a game season his whole career. Seriously, I was like, wow, that kind of just took me for a surprise. He was only 24 at the time too, so he was pretty young too, coming out of Georgia Tech. And then the guy that was one of my favorite players of all time, Michael Redd. And I thought he was out there.
A flamethrower.
And then Kirilenko, I think, would be the interesting guy playing nowadays too. He would be like
with the versatility, he would have been. He'd be like a Draymond Green almost, but without the physicalness. I don't think he was as physical as Draymond, but he definitely look at his blocks per game. It's insane. Like you go 3 blocks a game. How the hell does 6'8" Russian just or 6'9" maybe Russian just swat these guys all day? I just remember he dominated that Warriors series in whatever year that was. I was like, every time they go to the hoop, this damn Russian blocks are shot.
He's dunking and slashing and killing us. Killing us over there. All right, anything else stand out to you about that season at all?
I just wish like Steve Nash and Dirk got to play in the NBA today, where the three, like Steve Nash would be getting up 10 threes a game and Dirk would be getting up 8. And I think it would have been, and they stuck together for longer. Like I think that would have just like that was my biggest thing was what could have happened with these two if they played today. Like it would have been one of the dirtiest pick and roll. It'd be like Stockton and Malone on steroids.
The players that I did not like back then, Allen Houston, he was in that regard. Now I don't know why. I don't know why. It wasn't a Knicks thing either. Just maybe it was. I don't know what it was. It wasn't like I think
a
they were on TNT a lot or so. I don't know what it was. Like I think always the 2 rebounds, 1 assist bothered me a little bit. Like that.
Not good. You're 6'8", you'd be able to get 2 rebounds.
A little shout out to Jalen Rose. He was top one of the higher scorers that season that year. Guys, a lot of good players retired that season. That was also a standout for me. Jordan called it quits at that year. Tim Hardaway, Sean Kemp, our boy Steve Kerr, he called it quits. Sabonis, now his son's in there. Jay Williams, the Bulls, Jay Williams, he called it quits after 1 year, obviously with his accident, and John Stockton. So a lot of players called it quits from that one era to the Kobe McGrady era. Iverson was only 27. You know what I mean? That was like kind of that next group with Dirk coming on, Duncan. So it was a good, fun time looking back at it. I thought it was I'd like to deep dive even more into it, like kind of maybe on a separate episode a little bit more and have like more questions around it too. But I don't want to go too far into it here on a Sunday morning, but I just hope gave people just a little history lesson onto it in that regard. So what do you think, T? Anything else just kind of stand out to you about the changes in the game from that time to now?
The game's grown so much for the better as far as the pace of play and how it's played. It's like you can watch teams you don't care about on TV and enjoy it. Like back then, it was really like these 67, 72 games were not entertaining. Like the Pistons winning the championship and being in the Eastern Conference Finals 6 years in a row. I mean, sorry, Detroit. They were good. They did what they needed to do, but it was not fun.
Well, to kind of put a point to that too, is I noticed one of the other things that stood out was the block shots. Like now, last year there was only 2 guys, I think 3 guys that had more than 2 blocks in the whole season. Like average that. Like just
is that real? I mean?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, for real. So let's see, who were they? Jared Jackson, I know, is one of them. Gobert and Robert Williams. Those were the 3 guys that averaged the most last year. So this year, or in that season, you had Ben, Theo, Tim Duncan, Elton Brand, Donald Foyle, Shaquille O'Neal, Jermaine O'Neal, Kirilenko, as we mentioned, Sean Bradley, and then you had a Gloskis, Keon Clark, and Dampier like at 1.9. Yeah, like that many guys almost averaging 2 blocks. So like you can just see how the game has been stretched out more than anything else from that point to now. Like just not enough block shots even available with that. So
do you have any players who you think would be like they could have been a star then, but would be even like just like you mentioned Elton Brand, and I go, that guy was 24 at the time, averaging 2+ blocks and just an offensive force, and he would have developed more range if he grew up today, like you imagine. I just think he would have been ridiculous.
Just dominant at that point. I kind of think Sharif Abdul-Rahim would have been even better. I think he would have learned how to shoot threes too. And I think like with the spacing, I think he would have been a lot. I think not saying I don't know. I think he might have been maybe made a push to the Hall of Fame. I don't think he'll make the Hall of Fame now, but I think he maybe could have been a player that could be better too. Because he always had to play with a center like right next on the block. You know what I mean? And he
Yeah. Another guy I had was Peja. He would have been getting 16 threes again, like not really, but like 12 at least. Yeah. He's just jacking them up.
What? Yeah, that year he only averaged like 5.6. So yeah, he would have took a lot more during that time too. So it was that's kind of funny looking back at that stuff. Antoine, big Warriors stayed out there too, I think. All right, so that was the Warriors part of it. Our little deep dive into the 2002 2003 season. Now and then. Why don't we take a quick little break here, and we'll be back with kind of part 2 here of Sunday morning podcast, and we'll wrap it up here. We'll be back. We're back here, Fatboy FadeAway Sports Podcast. I was a little bit NBA there. All right, NFL, Tyler, this week. I find our podcast always interesting because usually when it comes out and probably when most people listen to it, like at this point of the year, probably most time games have already happened. So like I always find out wrong most of the time and wrong badly. So Niners Chargers today. You got, to me, we're going to be doing the podcast tonight on Variety Sports Network. With Jimmy. Rev will be joining us. That'll be fun to do. You'll be having to watch the game live, probably unfortunately a little bit towards the
distracted.
End. Also, remember, I should mention that while we're doing the podcast, use that code VSN15 over at Row One Brand to get 15% off anything at the and their art gallery. But Tyler, Niners, Chargers. I mean, what are you expecting? I feel like from this point on, they're all big games.
I mean, the Niners have to come out and win. The Chargers are without Mike Williams and Keenan Allen.
That's the analysis.
They gotta win. They have to win this game. Like Herbert's gonna be tough. He can run, he can move, he's athletic, he's tough to get to, but he can be gotten with these weapons missing for the Chargers. The Niners are fully healthy. There's no excuses. We have the whole shebang. Everybody's back. That's important, except we lost another corner this week in Jason Verrett with a torn Achilles, which really put a damper on the whole team. I guess they were all depressed. They all didn't want to practice after because they love the guy, and this is his second torn Achilles. He already has 2 torn ACLs, but the team's healthy for the most part. We have all our weapons. We have Armstead coming back. We got Bosa. We got Warner and Greenlaw and Ward and Tuafunga. We should win. And if we don't, we're 7.5-point favorites. It's another here comes the fan base blaming Shanahan. We can see it coming now. Shanahan wants to keep the fan base happy. They better win today.
Brian is frustrated with Shanahan. It cracks me up his love-hate relationship with Shanahan. But he's probably dialed in on the fan base in that regard. Like I don't know. Like for me, I'm always like, man, I just would always want him as my offensive coordinator, but then maybe I just don't see all the little nuances that you guys see with them and stuff like that you find annoying. But for the Chargers, it's such a big game for them too, so it's what makes the game very interesting this week. The other big news in the NFL this week was Jeff Saturday getting hired. That riled up a few people with that hiring. It was definitely a strange hiring. It's not the same as Art Shell, of course, because Art Shell had coaching experience, but it kind of reminded me of the same thing, only because Art Shell was so far removed from coaching and wasn't even involved for such a long time. And then Al Davis just called him in for that. It felt like a favor for that 1 year after he got rid of Lane Kiffin, and then they hired that offensive coordinator that was just running basic offensive plays, and oh my gosh,
half-back dive.
It was so bad. So obviously not the same thing because of the coaching experience and that kind of thing, but that's what it felt like to me, just because of how far removed Al Davis and how far Art Shell was from the gig. But what do you think of that? And the Raiders playing the Colts this week.
Art Shell was 75 years old also. And he had that was weird. This is weird. This stuff doesn't bother me as much. I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't know. It just doesn't bother me. Owner can do what they want. And Jeff Saturday was always a smart player. He's Peyton Manning raves about him. He knows football. Is he going to be a good coach? I don't know. He's an intern coach. Which if you want to hire the guy, then hire the guy. Is he who I would have hired? No. Should he have gotten the job based on what he's accomplished in coaching? Obviously not. So I see why people are upset about it, but Just doesn't bother me when this stuff type kind of happens. And maybe that's because I'm a white male who, I don't know. It just feels that way. So, like, I get it, but it just doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking Art Shell for that reason. Like, I was
No,
just
I know. I'm
it
not
just reminded me of the same thing. Like, where I was like, what the hell? Like,
an offensive lineman who gets a head coaching job.
why
Like,
is he coming on
that's
now?
me.
He's not even. He's been out of the game forever. Like, what's going on here? So that and then the Raiders play McDaniels, where it feels like if McDaniel loses, he should get fired on the spot. It feels like that. Mark Davis doesn't quite have the Al Davis gene in him, so my guess is he probably doesn't, unless you listen to Fake Scheffner. That might be the case.
Does Mark Davis have the money to pay him out? Like, if he like,
well, he's saving a lot of money on haircuts, so I believe that he does have the money.
uses a lawnmower.
Is there the? I mean, the NFL will get more into tonight. Like, I feel like there's just things that like other people cover in that regard. We cover usually the post game with it. I don't know. Like, I don't want. There's the Allen injury. The Bills are playing him. Doctors say there's nothing wrong with him. He can't get hurt anymore. I mean, that's got to be an encouraging sign if you're a Bills fan. That sucks. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to be hurt for a while and just still play through it. Like, why not? I don't know. Like, why not just rest him a week and then? But you know what I mean. That's why I don't know. That's what I would do if he's your start quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. The Vikings 7-1. That's the big game this week. Is there any that who you got in that one? I guess I'll put it that way.
I mean, I have the Bills winning. I don't care who's starting at quarterback. This is my show me player of the week is Kirk Cousins. Show me you can beat a good team. You beat up on all the bad teams. You've done that your whole career. You put up these numbers. Let's see if you can beat a good team on the road.
Are you saying that because it was all the jewelry? It was like where he last week.
No, I didn't. That did not come into factor. I mean, that was kind of funny.
Tom in Germany, breaking news. He's got the ball right now in Germany.
Is that on right now?
Forward, yeah. Move forward.
Oh God, you're resembling somebody. Yeah, it just. I think the Bills will win. I think they're a better team than the Vikings. If Josh Allen doesn't play, it'll be a lot tougher. But I think home field advantage at Orchard Park in Buffalo is a big advantage.
So show me team. Who's your show me team then?
My show me team is the 49ers. You're playing. You're a 7.5 point favorite against a Herbert team with no Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. You have to win this game with everyone healthy, like I said before.
I gotta say also that that Mariota throw this week on Thursday Night Football. I didn't watch any of the game, but I saw the highlight. And then we obviously follow the guys on Variety Sports Network, and they're hilarious. I mean, I showed Hotto one of their things, and the Rice Krispie segment thing. I just go listen to it. It was pretty hilarious. I'm not even gonna say more than that, but they had a part on the Rice Krispie segment about Rice Krispies. That part was hilarious. Just go listen to that part. But they were talking about that throw, and Mariota, one of the most athletic, non-remembered throws in the history of the world. Like, he like kamikaze spun. I don't even know how he threw the ball, Tyler. It's just like one of the craziest plays. I'm laughing, kind of holding back tears, saying it because just the replay of it and what I don't know. It's like one of those plays where you see a little leaguer just doing way too much, just
trying way too hard to do something they saw on TV. And it's just, it's not going to work. But
he got lucky that his shoulder hit the ground too. That's what made it even funnier. I don't know about that.
It reminded. No, go ahead.
No,
show me. No, go ahead.
No, I just thought that was hilarious. I just thought that was so funny. The show me team player I had was Cowboys are the team. And I got Justin Fields. Show me play again. I was hyping you up this week. Don't let me down. Don't let me down, man. Come on, don't let me down. Throw it. 2 weeks in a row, you're playing the Lions. That should be a nice chance to get 2 solid games in a row. Keep my hype train going on you. Let's keep the momentum going. So those are my show me team and player of the week. And I'm very hooded. I don't know why. I don't know why it gets me. I don't know what it is about that play. I don't know what it is. All right, my eliminator challenge. I'm still going this week, Tyler. Can you believe it? I mean, I am still
impressive.
Down on the ESPN that we're getting down to less than 10,000 people. I'd say it's a good amount when you're eliminating that many people. I'm going with the Chiefs this week versus the Jags. I think that's the team at 44%. I've noticed that always makes me want to not pick a team when that many people are picking a team, just because you know what I mean. It's always tempting because you're like, well, if the Chiefs do lose and you pick the right team, and you know what I mean, there is that part of it. Would there be another team that you would trust if I decided to not pick the Chiefs?
I mean, no, I don't trust any of these games. Maybe no, I don't trust any of them. You have to pick the Chiefs. I think that's why it's such a dominant pick this week. The list of teams you gave me, though,
Like the Titans? Should I pick the Titans against the Broncos with Tannehill back? That was the. But Sharky's advice kind of makes me think the other way, where he's like, the games they should dominate. You know what I mean? They don't dominate. Yeah. So part of me is like, well, maybe I don't want to go against that.
But how you're still in it with the teams you've picked is ridiculous, and you have no reason. Like, you should have all the good teams still available of it.
I did. I used the Eagles last week, so I used them versus the Texans. I got the Bills still available. I got the Vikings still available, and so we'll see what they might have a chance. Tyler might have a chance. Yeah, as long as you don't. That's why this week the Dolphins against the Browns. What do you think about that one? That was another one I was thinking maybe.
Browns defense or the Dolphins defenses can get trampled at times. So I don't know if I can trust the Browns.
And then the other one Dolphins. Too. This was the other one where I was like, is this where I go? Take a risk. Is the Giants versus the Texans? Giants are at home.
It's Daniel Jones. You put the
money on Daniel Jones. I'm gonna have to put money on Daniel's son. Is against the Texans and the key. You know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. So
I just have always played survive every week.
And look where it's got you.
I didn't do it. I've won the last time I did it, to be honest.
You did?
I've lost a couple of times. Not on ESPN with 10,000 people, but with like 200 people, I won one. I split it with 2 other people. What?
Did you go all 17 weeks?
No, we went 14. And we all lost in week 14 with 2 different teams. They had one team and the 2 guys had one team and I had one team and they lost. And then I lost in overtime. I was like, no. I could have took it all, but we had to split it 3 ways. It was the Texans tied or beat somebody. That it was 3 years ago. Damn.
Is that why you don't want me to pick the Giants?
Maybe. I just don't trust Danielson.
The Texans are your head. I wonder if that worked. For gambling, that's so true though. I wonder, like,
for sure.
My friend Nicky does the horse race. And your dad, does he still do horse betting at all? Like,
he does it live at the fair. He doesn't go. And the big race.
Did he ever used to do it, or did you ever do horse betting? Like, like you get it set, you kind of just find a guy like a jockey, you write him like, and then if they screw you over, you never pick him again. Yeah, that's what I heard. That's why gambling. I can't do it, man.
You do it every week.
Yeah, for 50 cents.
True.
I'm saying
you should do 14 team parlays every week.
Hey, I did bet $5 on Jokic the other day and I lost that. So I was like, that's why I don't do it. That is why I don't do it. So I'm still alive there at the Eliminator Challenge. So it's been kind of a fun podcast. I feel like we've been chatting it up a little bit. Before we kind of get deep dive, actually, let's go winners or losers, and then I got maybe some other things I'll add to the list if you don't mention them. Let's go with the winners first from this week. Any winners that stood out to you that you want to bring up?
I went with the USA. We had a voting week, unpopular pick at this time. A lot of shit talked about the USA, but you have the right to vote. You get to vote. U.S. citizens. I don't even care. I'm glad that you have the right to vote. The fact that you get to vote is something you should take advantage of every chance you get. So my winner is the citizens of the USA.
And
as unfair it is at times, and it is unfair, but it's better than being in a dictatorship where it's been like that since 1776 till USA came into existence.
And that's the end of Tyler's 7th grade project. Just kidding. No, you're right. There's a video of that. Sorry, I always got to be sarcastic with those things. It was funny with the Tuesday elections. I had something written down for that too as well. Not for necessarily the winner, but I was kind of just put like the overall media of things. I'm so burnt out on like politics. Like I don't think I've listened to the news, like main news for like 6 months.
Oh, I'm with you.
Anything. And I'm like in my head, I'm like, at some point I'm going to have to you got to get locked in a little bit just to kind of somewhat be aware of things, or even locally or something like that. And like, but even sometimes I feel like I'm just not getting, I just want news. And I'm like, where the hell can I find that still? Like that's the problem still. ESPN. Is that what you said?
C-SPAN.
Oh, ESPN. No. You know what I mean? Like just straight like you just know like
It's
12
boring as shit. You just have to listen to the House of Representatives talk. You don't even know what they're talking about half the time.
Yeah, I don't want to listen to those guys. I want to listen to like somebody else say it, but just give me the straight stuff with it. But
Yeah.
I thought that part was, and then another part that was funny is I had a couple people text me that morning of the election. They're like, "Is your dad on the ballot?" I was like, "What?" I was like, I guess I don't talk to my dad enough. I was like, I didn't even know he was running for anything. So I thought that was kind of funny too with that. So yeah, that's a good winner of the week. My winner of the week is the veterans. We celebrated Veterans Day on Friday, so I want to give them a shout out. Obviously, just like
Went to
all the
make us free.
we've met a few people on Twitter. Obviously, Ryan G's one of them on Twitter. There are a few others. I know this guy Steven that does some stuff at No Ceilings draft stuff. He does, those guys. And then
I think
obviously
the guy from BSing report or BSing.
Yep, Ryan. Yep, Ryan. And then obviously I think you have a family member that's there and or was. And we've had family members that have done it in my family as well. So just shout out to them. They're the winner of the week. Small on a much smaller scale. Babe Ruth still making money for people. His glove just sold for $1.5 million. Like, yeah, I don't know how it looks like a lawn glove. Like this thing looks like something I would use to pick weeds. But that sold for $1.5 million as well. Tyler, loser of the week, you got?
My loser of the week is the champions at UFC 281. Izzy goes down. Carla goes down. We got a Zayn Wali winning the women's title and Alex Pereira beating Izzy for the third time in combat sports. First time in the UFC, but he beat him twice in kickboxing, knocked him out all 3 times. It's just shocking that Izzy could lose to anyone 3 times with how dominant he's been. And this guy's huge that he fought, though. He looked like he was 250 pounds.
Are you talking about now? I don't say the tall, the skinny guy, right?
Adesanya, yeah.
Yeah, and that's that was the main event, right? He's the guy that got knocked. I saw him get knocked out, or I don't know if he got knocked out, but yeah, but he got like punched like 8 straight times in the face. It looked like basically. He wasn't feeling good at that point. Was he winning before that?
Yeah, he was winning on the scorecard. It was pretty even though, as far as like punches landed, but he was winning on the scorecard. He took the loss well. He said he was fine, but he understood the stoppage and he trusts his coaches, and his coaches said it should have been stopped. So he admitted defeat. I can always appreciate someone who can take a loss, especially in a one-on-one sport like that. No, that's his first loss in the UFC or in the UFC.
I believe last time.
No, that was Kamaru Usman.
Okay, I thought he lost too. All right, my loser of the week, I got the Pac-12/10.
They were going to be my winner of the week before Saturday, but carry on.
Well, that's why they play the games, and that's why I call it Pac-12/10. They end up losing with UCLA and Oregon. They fall, 2 teams that looked like they were maybe going to give the Pac-12 a chance to get a team in the dance. Wouldn't have mattered, but at least they would add a team in the playoffs. Utah, I just don't see them getting in. They're 13. It's not going to happen. So I guess USC is the hope, but getting in there. So we'll see if they can. But I feel like UCLA will fall to somebody too. They'll knock each other out. I guess it's better that now they have some competitive teams that are maybe forcing them, but it's not really. You want to get the teams in the playoff. That's what you want. So we'll see what happens there at the USC.
The fact that they had 4 teams in the top 13 going into this week, they were in as my winners group, and then I had to change. You're like, Oregon's having trouble. I was like, no. And then I was watching UCLA get smacked by Stanford, and I was like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah, so, your Arizona Wildcats beat UCLA. So
who'd Stanford play? Utah?
No, Utah beat Stanford though.
Okay.
So that was kind of funny too.
Got the teams confused.
Yeah, no, and the other, it was kind of like a loser, but I thought it was, a lot of people felt mixed emotions as the Warriors uniform they unveiled. These city edition uniforms, some of these are trying too hard. My goodness, some of them the uniforms don't even make sense. Now I respect all the design artists and all that, but man,
I don't.
Y'all can't like art. Let's put it that way either. You all like the same art. That's why some of you don't subscribe to this podcast.
Subscribe, damn it.
You like our art, damn it. But with that said, I just thought that was good.
I mean, I understand they're doing it for women's suffrage. Just cut a check. I'm sick of these ugly uniforms. Why do we have roses on our uniforms? It makes no sense. Wear your gosh darn home and away uniforms 90% of the time. Don't need all these damn city uniforms.
No, you're right. I think that's the thing. Like, we're just traditionalists in that regard. Like, we agree. Like, there's what the cause is. That's fantastic. It's fantastic. All that, right? But we're just talking strictly just tradition and uniforms here. with it. They're always just trying a little too hard. It actually didn't look as bad with the flower tucked in. I will say that.
My biggest disappointment was the whole court. I was like, what the hell? Where are they playing right now? I didn't even realize there was a home game for the first like 3 minutes.
I thought the other funny thing from the week, you had to have saw this yesterday, was that guy that showed that blonde his Costco card, and I got a lot of news. Did you see that?
Costco's a
That
big.
would be one of the greatest things I've seen in a while. If nobody knows what we're talking about, there's this video where this guy, like some random he's at an ACC game and I don't know where, but like he's a student wearing a referee shirt. He's handing this like this young blonde his Costco membership, and the way she looks at the card, almost like she knew she was on TV or something, was like impressive. And oh man, I don't know what I've seen some good stuff on the internet, but that was right up there. That's not a loser of the week, man. I don't know what that was. That was hilarious.
I remember when I talked to girls, I always whipped out my Costco card. It was quite the flex.
I was thinking that might be one of the ones that you would. I mean, how would you flex the Costco card? That'd be. I don't know what he's doing. Where I work, I'm a legit human being. Like I don't know what he was doing. Her face was so great. So I thought that stuff was. I thought that was hilarious this week.
He had to prove who he was. I don't know. It's a real interesting situation.
That was pretty funny though. So, all right, that's I think that's our podcast for the week, Tyler. Unless you got something else, just want to shout out all the people that listened, and kind of comment on our podcast with you doing the new thing with the clips and us doing the variety sports. Any comments or always appreciate the guys on seventh inning stretch. That was fun doing that with them the last couple of weeks of the playoffs. Appreciate Logan for having us on there. I mean, we will have to get him on one of these times. We will class up the program and get him on here. We'll talk about it. We didn't get it today, but the MLB free agency might be kind of interesting this year with it. So
Logan, where was my invitation? Get lost in the mail. I didn't make the cut for the MLB free agency. I see you.
I got lost in the mail over there. We gotta keep you fresh. Gotta keep. I want to overwork you. You gotta keep you there. But that's been fun doing that Josh guy. He was fun to have on as well. Too. So it'll be interesting where some of the judge goes. I know you want him to go to the Giants, so we'll see what happens there with it as well. So
only hope.
So with that said, episode 111 in the books. Thank you to anybody that listened. Thank you to all the guys that have been supporting us this week. Tyler's back from Hawaii. Now he's fresh.
Ready to go every day.
Was that hard this week?
Coming back
from the vacation?
No, I came back refreshed, ready to go. I called in sick the first day back. I was a little tired from the air flight. I was like, I'm gonna take the Monday off, adjust my sleeping pattern, and I was ready to go.
I was talking to that guy that we follow on Twitter, always a good follow there. He was saying that when he worked in Hawaii, he worked on a cruise ship or something like that. And he said their schedule sounded insane. That sounded like maybe.
Yeah, I was like, F that.
I was like, good Lord, man. I was like, that is insane. It was like something like you work every day for a month. And for every month you work, you get a week off. I was like, that is not, I was like, I know my dad's firefighter schedule was kind of tough, but they at least get full days off like every 4 days or something like that. I was like, that, you know what I mean? I was like, that's intense right there. On a cruise ship on that little, I mean, I guess they probably get to get off the island too, but I would think when the people get off, that's when they have to work and prep and all that too. So I don't know. That sounds like not an easy gig.
Not the life for me. I can promise you that.
Anyway, shout out to him as well. He's always a good follow NBA wise. Get his takes as well. So Tyler, we'll see you next week, my friend. Episode 112. Everybody out there, peace.
Peace.